If this isn't the final nail in the coffin for the theory of evolution, I don't know what is. The website Tech Times published an article online not too long ago entitled "Massive Genetic Study Reveals 90% of Earth's Animals Appeared at the Same Time." Where do I remember reading that? Oh yeah, Genesis chapter 1 verses 20 through 31. It talks about the 5th and 6th days of creation week. I'm not going to read it because it's kind of long, so feel free to read it for yourself. You can actually read the Bible for free online at BibleGateway.com. But on the 5th day of creation week, God created all of the marine life and birds. And on the 6th day, God created all land animals and humans. Back to the article from Tech Times. It says, landmark new research that involves analyzing millions of DNA barcodes has debunked much about what we know today about the evolution of species. Yeah, because it never happened. The article says, in a massive genetic study, senior research associate at the Program for the Human Environment at Rockefeller University, Mark Stokel, and University of Basel geneticist David Thaler discovered that virtually 90% of all animals on Earth appeared at right around the same time. Surprise, surprise. Science confirms the Bible. I'm not surprised though, mainly because I've been reading and studying the Bible for over 15 years, and it says God created all living things by the power of His Word. He spoke all life into existence. That's why animals appeared at around the same time. They didn't evolve, they were created. The article goes on to read, more specifically, they found out that 9 out of 10 animal species on the planet came to being at the same times as humans did some 100,000 to 200,000 years ago. Pretty much like it says on the 6th day of creation week, except for the 100,000 to 200,000 years. The Bible indicates that we were created around 6,000 years ago. That's because Luke chapter 3 verses 23 through 38 lists the genealogy of Jesus Christ all the way back to Adam. And when you do the math, that adds up to around 4,000 years. And since Jesus lived about 2,000 years ago, that comes to a total of about 6,000 years. So life on this planet did not begin about 100,000 to 200,000 years ago. I know there will be some people in the comments that will criticize the Bible because the dates for the origin of life don't match the article I'm reading. But keep in mind that evolutionists have traditionally claimed that life began over 3 billion years ago. So I see this as a step closer to the truth. Let's give them credit. At least they're making progress. The article goes on to talk about the COI gene, which is used to create DNA barcodes. And it says, in analyzing the COI of 100,000 species, Stokel and Thaler arrived at the conclusion that most animals appeared simultaneously. They analyzed the gene of 100,000 species. That must have taken countless hours to do, maybe even months or years. Not to mention the cost. I mean, somebody has to pay researchers for their time, right? Yet when you open the Bible and read about 5 minutes into the first page, it tells you practically the same thing. Somebody should tell secular scientists that. It will save them a lot of time and money. Listen to this though. It just gets better. They found that the neutral mutation across species were not as varied as expected. Neutral mutation refers to the slight DNA changes that occur across generations. They can be compared to tree rings because they can tell how old a certain species or individual is. As to how that could have happened, it's unclear. A likely possibility is the occurrence of a sudden event that caused large-scale environmental trauma and wiped out majority of Earth's species. Remind you of anything? Maybe a global flood? In the book of Genesis, chapter 6 and 7, it tells us that God decided to destroy mankind with a flood because people became completely corrupt and the earth was filled with violence. The only people that were spared was Noah and his family. The reason being is because Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord, according to Genesis chapter 6, verse 8. Bible-believing Christians have been criticized for years and still get criticized by secular society and God-hating scientists for believing these things. Yet now we have irrefutable scientific evidence that confirms the Bible. Actually, there already is a whole lot of irrefutable scientific evidence in support of the Bible's account of creation, so this just adds to that. Not to mention, just take a look around. Nothing is evolving. It never has evolved. If evolution were true, then we should be able to see intermediate species all around us. An intermediate species would be a step in the evolutionary process, like a half human and a half ape. But instead, what do we see? We see clear distinction between kinds of life. For example, there is a clear distinction between humans, apes, cats, dogs, birds, and so on. And this is exactly what we would expect if the Bible were true. For instance, Genesis chapter 1 verse 24 says, "And God said, Let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing and beast of the earth after his kind. And it was so." In other words, different forms of life reproduce after their kind. Therefore, you're not going to get a mouse if you mate two dogs. There's more to the article from Tech Times. I'll leave a link to it in the video description if you'd like to read it in its entirety. It does have an evolutionary bias, but it's fascinating to see that scientists are being confronted with strong evidence that refutes evolution and confirms the Bible, even if they don't want to admit it. But if you read between the lines, it's not hard to see. The Bible is true. God created us by the power of His Word. He loves us, and He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to die on the cross for our sins. Learn more about that by watching my video entitled 5 Steps to Salvation. You can click on the screen to watch it now. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and click the bell if you're new. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like it and share it, and God bless you.